Systems thinking. Why thinking like this will help you build wealth, riches, and your dream life. I was chatting with my mother. We're out in Chicago, and she was having these really bad headaches. I was having these migraines back in Toronto, and coming from Austin, we're not used to this sort of weather. It's been very dry out here in both Chicago, in Illinois, and also Toronto. And we were both so confused, why are we having these pounding headaches? Why are we unable to almost think properly? And I was thinking, and in Texas it's a lot more of a humid climate. Sometimes I'm out in Brazil, right? And we don't have to drink as much water out there, just because our bodies, our systems, right, still are pretty much able to function properly without needing to have that, right? So when we got to Toronto and we got to Chicago, right, it was a little bit different, right? It was it was harder to breathe sometimes, for me at least. It was I felt like I needed to have more water. I drink a lot of coffee, which also probably doesn't help there, but coffee in itself makes you more dehydrated, right? If you're drinking a lot of coffee, right, and you have this sort of environment in the cold, that's going to dry you out more. So my mother and I were asking ourselves, hey, why are we getting these headaches? Why is this happening to us? And we realized, well, hey, we're in this colder climate, so we're getting dried out. Our systems, our bodies are getting dried out, right? And also, we're drinking coffee, which is naturally making our system, our body, right, more dried out. And that was the reason for why we had these headaches. And you might be asking me, Kekoa, why are we talking about headaches today? Why are we talking about dehydration? Well, what my mother and I figured out was that when we had more water, we started drinking a lot more water, right? The headaches went away. We started sleeping a little bit more as well. The headaches went away, right? And what was that because? Well, it was because we thought in systems thinking. We realized that, hey, the body is a system. Why is this result happening? Well, it's because of this input. We moved to a new environment, right? That was input one. We weren't drinking as much water. That was input two, so dehydration. And we were also drinking coffee, which was a stimulant, right? But also it was affecting the hydration part of our system, our body, right? So once we fixed our hydration, we were no longer getting headaches. We felt better. We were able to focus more, right? And it was an incredible feeling. Business and making money is a lot like that. It's a lot like systems thinking. Being able to understand, hey, what is the end result that I want? Whether that's more wealth, better relationships, right? Better health. Maybe you're starting in the gym, right? And you want to get in shape. Well, what are the inputs required, right? What system are you starting to build? What system are you impacting? We're in this beautiful forest out here in Chicago, and seeing the green, being around this sort of environment, this makes me happier. I feel like this makes me more productive, right? It's so green here compared to Texas. Holy shit, right? But look at yourself right now and look at what you want. Do you want more money? Do you want better relationships? Do you want, better health? And then what are the inputs you are putting into that system? Because when you can think about life not as a linear path, but as multiple different routes all intersecting to build this one system, well, that's when you unlock the magic, right? I was talking to a few sales guys that were inside our modern SDR program, you know, they paid us a ton of money to work with us. And, you know, they were wondering, Kekoa, like, I'm not making enough money, right? The show rates are really low, right? We're having these problems with our closing rates. And I told them, hey guys, like, this is a whole system. You as a salesperson, you are part of the system, but you need to understand these other aspects of things as well, right? What were those other aspects? Well, it was marketing. What resources did their leads, their prospects consume before actually hopping onto that sales call? Did they watch a bunch of testimonials? Did they watch a bunch of case studies? Did they trust the business, the product, the service that that salesperson was actually selling for? And it looked like that a lot of these people were not consuming any resources. They were not educated well at all about the product or service. And what did that lead to? Well, it led to low show rates, low close rates, right? And it wasn't necessarily because the salesperson was bad. Sure, they probably could improve, right? I really like this home out here. But it wasn't because the salesperson was bad. It was because the whole system was broken. So whatever you're doing in life, I'm gonna change my hands of holding this video. Whatever you're doing in your life, look at the system that you're interacting with. Look and see where all these other potential places of impact are, right? Because that's ultimately going to help you get the outcome that you seek, because you're going to be able to see all these different avenues that all impact, right? That all impact the system that you're working towards, right? And you're working in. There's this little trail and path we're gonna go explore. I'll show you guys that as well. I think this will be nice. It's a beautiful day out here. I think one of my favorite things, it's a Wednesday or Thursday actually. One of my favorite things though about being able to be remote and being out here is the freedom that I'm able to experience, right? We have these beautiful townhomes out here. I think it's a townhome. I don't know, it's beautiful homes though. And it keeps you inspired every day, right? I think if you're in your hometown or, you know, you're still in the place you grew up, try to see a new place, because you will also see how new systems interact, how new systems operate. There's a good book I'll link in the description called Systems Thinking. I get a lot of my my belief structures and, you know, thought patterns from that, because it talks about even, you know, these elephants. I think I told this in one of our other videos, but it talks about these elephants, and there were, I think, like 7 different blind men that were touching this elephant. Obviously they can't tell it's an elephant because they're blind, right? But these blind men, one of them touches the ear, right? He thinks it's like this rough carpet. One of them touches the trunk. He thinks it's this like very long rubbery snake, right? Another one touches like the hide, the stomach of the elephant, right? And he thinks it's, you know, a snake skin, right? It's kind of rough, patchy. These 3 blind men all touch the same creature, but they touch different individual parts of the whole system, which was the elephant. So these blind men could not think in systems thinking because they only saw a portion of the individual there. So if you're ever feeling stuck, if you're ever feeling like you're not seeing the whole picture, you need to zoom out and you need to see what are these individual portions of the system that I'm missing, and how do these all intersect? Because if you can think like that, I guarantee you can build real wealth, right? So I hope you enjoyed the video. It's Kekoa here. As always, I've been enjoying just these talking head, no edited videos. I feel like it's a lot more genuine and more real, and you know, more to myself. So I hope you guys like these videos too. If you're wanting to start, you know, building extra income, you're wanting to, you know, start building that system of wealth creation, right? I think sales and remote triaging is the best way to do that. I've done this for the last 5 years. I've been in the social media game for 11 or 12 years, right? I was on YouTube back in 2014 making gaming videos, right? But everything throughout, it's all sales, right? And that's the individual part of every system that I realized was all the same. So if you want to start learning that, we obviously have our paid programs, Modern SDR, we have our 7-day setter program, our SDR initiative program, right? It's like 17 bucks a month. If you can't afford that, I'm not sure what to say. And then we have a 7-hour free course down in the description. But I hope you guys got some value from this video, and I'll see you in the next one, okay?